Hey folks, so part 2, I'm going to start out by saying what tomorrow, or not tomorrow, Friday or next Friday's OK Fridays gimmick is going to be. So get a replay of you and 4 other friends doing the following gimmick. Actually, I guess it wouldn't have to be friends. If you can get strangers to do this, then it's awesome. If you don't know how to record a replay, go to leaguereplays.com. and that will give you the resources you need to record a replay. So, for OK Friday's gimmick, I want you to gather your friends, and at the 8-minute mark, I want you guys to go for an objective that is easily contestable. Now, that doesn't mean you're blue, you're red, or really anything on your side of the jungle. It means Baron, Dragon, Towers, their buffs, and not their small camps. Wraiths, Golems, and Wolves are not exactly that hard to take. I mean, yeah, it can be tricky sometimes, but I want something that requires at least a few people, but you're bringing all 5 in. I highly recommend you don't take blue and just do nothing afterwards. I really would recommend going for some big objectives, but plan your team around this and expect to miss out on some farm time. I want to see how this one turns out, because be aggressive. Should be fun. Now, as for the replay we're currently looking at, so when you play a game of League of Legends, you will make mistakes. And these mistakes are things you can remedy. There are different ways to remedy them. You can do it after the game, but you want to improve as fast as you possibly can. So when you're playing League of Legends, when you make a mistake, when you see yourself get your ass just dragged along the floor by that enemy Xerath who is so good at landing his skill shots, then find out what you're doing wrong right then and there. Now, sometimes you can't fix it. Sometimes you're like, well, that was my early game, it's gone now, and I really need to do something different then. But you can improve yourself as games go on, destroying them, just by your strategies and how you approach enemies. For example, Mordekaiser top versus Rumble top. A bad Mordekaiser can beat a bad Rumble. A good Rumble will never lose to a Mordekaiser. The big thing is, Rumble can just fight Mordekaiser when he's not near creeps, and he has to approach from an angle where Mordekaiser cannot possibly E him and creeps. And when you do that, Mordekaiser has no response to your attacks. He can damage you, but you deal more damage than he does. So there's lots of neat little tricks you can do, and just different ways to approach enemies and fights, and you can get better. You just want to get better as fast as you can. So when you die, don't go, oh man, that guy is so overpowered. Oh, man, my teammates should have helped me. No, you die and you get better. And you say, alright, what could I do? How can I fix this myself? Because I can't always depend on my teammates. Even if there's somebody I'm on Ventrilo or Mumble with, and I'm talking to them saying, I need this help. They can make a mistake. You can make a mistake. Maybe they might have to go somewhere else. So try and get better as much as you can on your own. If you're constantly striving to improve, you will improve. Alright, and let's hop into the rest of this replay and take a look at Grim and how he's doing on Mr. Karthus. And we're back. So Grinch is going to head down mid, and he's making some mistakes in general. His item build, not too good. That's something you just learn over time and experience, that you don't want to rush for that tier blasting wand combo. Over here, Tarek is in for the just fight of his life as a wolf, and young anime beat him to death. And Grinch is going to do something cool. He pings. He gives a retreat. He says Fiddlesticks is here. Regardless of how you're doing in game, these pings can be super useful, and you can always do them. And he's being better with his wall and aggression. He does that. Now that may have not seemed that impressive, but he was able to get Fiddlesticks to get scared enough to blow his ult. And the fact that he got that ult blown and was able to walk out is really, really good for his team, because now this fight is a lot better for them. Right there, Soraka would have died. Fiddlesticks may have gotten that steal, but instead he's dead. He's super dead. And over there, Trinamir and Garen are just kind of walking into each other. But that was a good fight. They got an objective. They blew a very, very big ult. So for the next 100 or so seconds, they don't have to worry about Fiddlesticks doing his rude Fiddlesticks thing. Now, Could that have been better? Yeah, he could have put a wall in the bush, actually, and the wall would have provided vision and allowed his team to get jumped on. He put a wall to try and block Fiddlesticks from running away, except Fiddlesticks was already flashed in there with his ult down. So he wasn't going to run. He probably should have just walled Fiddlesticks where he stood. So, you know, mistakes, but he's doing better. And Fiddlesticks is unfortunately getting caught. And the thing with Fiddlesticks is he's incredibly scary when you know where he isn't, or when you don't know where he is. But he's just nothing when you know where he is. So, if that made any sense, what I'm saying is they saw him and he wasn't scary. And that's just true of Fiddlesticks in general. When you have clear vision on him 24/7, he's not a threat. You have no element of surprise. Especially because this team, while they do have some good initiation, it's very, very hard to get off a good Orianna ult into a slow to keep people in the right spot for a Fiddlesticks ult. Now, before, when Karthus ulted, he'd ulted, in response to a gank and it wasn't really worth it. He'd ulted in response to him dying and it wasn't worth it. And he's going to ult in a different way now. He ults to help this fight out. He knows that he's far away. He's in the back, just helping catch people. He didn't need to do that, but it actually more or less let this dive happen. It brought Taric and Ashe low enough where it was just very, very common, easy to see that you want to dive them. Now, diving with Tryndamere isn't exactly the hardest decision to make in your life, but the fact that they were already low and easy to kill just gives them that extra push. Obviously, if the Karthus ult went down later, it could have done the same thing, but, it helped the team go quickly. That right there was actually a good wall. It wasn't really needed because Warwick was just clawing him to death, but it was good. Now, I will say something. Warwick says, don't do Dragon with one dead. Depending on who it is, it can be safe. And he actually did a really good wall into that bush earlier. He's getting these walls off. He's getting better. But there's still one big thing with Karthus, which is he's super squishy, and you got to be careful about him. Also, he has 2,000 gold to spend. Huh. So this fight's very, very interesting. Garen and Orianna just kind of kill off Soraka at the beginning. She just does not have the HP to survive any of that damage. Tryndamere chases down Taric because he's squishy. Garen chases down Tryndamere because he hates Tryndamere. And Orianna actually goes for Karthus. Now, the only person really hitting someone who mattered in this case was that Orianna. And she got that kill, but at the expense of her own life. Now, unfortunately, Karthus didn't slap down a wall. But losing Karthus for Orianna, especially the fact that Karthus is super far behind, is just not worth it. So even though he died, he was able to pull the enemy team into a position where they were more or less diving them and Tryndamere could come in and do his thing. This Tryndamere is also just kind of destroying everybody. That is one of the advantages of solo queue. There's a chance you can just kind of get fed and win the game. Or if you don't do that, someone else can. But they don't necessarily have to be on your team, and that's where the problems come in. This is actually why Akali and Sion, okay, were incredibly popular at the beginning of Season 1, or Season 2. At the beginning of Season 2, people were so thrown about in terms of elo and matchmaking that there's a good chance that if you picked Akali or Tryndamere, or someone who could snowball, you would snowball, because if you're that good, they might have been that bad. But now that the game has balanced out quite a bit, Akali and Sion have both been nerfed a bit, they've gotten a whole lot riskier compared to before. I actually still like Sion quite a bit. Akali, she just doesn't have her oomph. But besides that history, let's go back into this game. So Karthus, he's slowly learning his skills. And even if he's dying a lot and getting killed a lot, that's okay. Because he is getting better. He is contributing more and more to this game and to this team. Luckily, Tryndamere is there to do a ton of damage, and that Warwick gets such a good ult on Fiddlesticks. That just locks him down. That means he can't ult into the fight anymore. And then that Karthus wall was actually amazing. Like, he hit everybody. He covered that entire lane. I don't think you can actually sneak by that. So, great wall, Grinch. And this is how you learn the game. You play, you get your ass kicked. If you get lucky, you get a win. If you get unlucky, you lose. But he's getting better. Now, Grinch, I would like to say this. You should keep playing Karthus. You should keep trying to get better at AP meds. Because you know what? You might need some practice. You might need to learn that Ashe can kill you very, very quickly with that burst. But you're not horrible at it. And it might fit your style. I will say this. If you play League of Legends and you've not played every role extensively, there's a good chance there's a role that fits you better. I did not play support until December. And when I did play support, it was very, very just like, oh, I'll get Taric and just stun them a bit, whatever, I don't really play it. I love support though. It's incredibly fun to me. And even though I enjoy top a bit, it's just been a different experience playing in this role. So you might like all the roles, you might like some roles, but you should definitely experiment and find something you really enjoy. Even if support doesn't look enticing, it might be. So this fight's very, very interesting again. This is that Fiddlesticks ult that they wanted the entire game. Unfortunately, Fiddlesticks doesn't get that steal off, but that Orianna Fiddlesticks combination is a ton of damage. Unfortunately, Wick and Tryndamere are super tanky, so they don't die or really get close. But Soraka gets picked off, and Grinch does something that I don't know if it's a mistake or not, honestly. He walks into the enemy team, but when you're Karthus, that's actually kind of okay. His wall placement isn't amazing, but it gets, it's getting the job done. He's getting some CC. Now, unfortunately, blue team splits up quite a bit. So, Ezreal's being chased by Garen, and Tryndamere just kills both Ashe and Taric there. And that is something you have to watch out about, especially with somebody like Tryndamere. If Orianna had stayed, or if Ashe hadn't ran quite as far away, they could have killed Tryndamere. They could have kited him a little bit more and just gotten enough damage on him. And that is something people have trouble with. They think once they run, they gotta keep running. But you'll notice a lot of pros do this, and sometimes it's a terrible mistake, and I've done it 100 times before. They stay in as long as they can, and they try to output as much damage as they can. So, if you're a Corki with 1 HP, you can still do full damage. You just gotta make sure you don't get hit. So in the case of that Tryndamere, they could have done that, and they could have killed them. But, they didn't. So this is, kind of Karthus. Once again, I think he's doing this on purpose, but the question is, if he isn't, he's got to learn when to do that. But he walks into the enemy team and dies. But he's able to put down a wall to slow them down. He's able to just do enough damage to kill them. And it works. And the enemy team surrenders. So this has been a look at a 1100 ELO game. This is Studio saying adios, and have a pleasant week. I'll see you tomorrow for a short and Wednesday for most likely a high ELO replay.